Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly technical workshop. Today, August 27th. Today, we have the pleasure to present to you the undeveloped, already discovered reservoirs opportunities, plus the new nominated area interpretations in the Sinu, San Jacinto, and Lower Magdalena basins. Unfortunately, we included in the title the opportunities in the middle mark, but we think that we are going to run out of time to present those opportunities to you. So we will keep it for next week. We have today a couple of ANH interpreters with us, Daniel Rodriguez and Lina Serna, and I will mention the background of all of them later. So let me just maybe remind the status or workshops or as part of the cycle 3. So last week we covered all the Caribbean basins. We in August 20th, we covered Sinu offshore, Guajira offshore, the Colombia offshore, and we revised the result of the piston courts in the Caribbean. So in the Caribbean Sea, so you have a great idea of the offshore. Today, as I mentioned to you, all of you, we have a couple of nominations of areas that we will illustrate briefly, the opportunities there. And also we will cover around 7 undeveloped, already discovered reservoirs that the agency has identified on those basins. Next week, on September 3rd, we will have the nomination areas. We will have 4 of them that day, all of them in the middle mark and in the Llanos Basin. And also we will cover a big amount of undeveloped, already discovered reservoirs, around 13 of them we will cover that day on September 3rd. So September 10th, we are going to have a break in the process, because we have a very nice presentation from ION on the Caribbean. They have done a wonderful work in reprocessing the seismic there, and you will see some interpretation and great opportunities in the offshore. I'm talking about the Caribbean Sea and the Caribbean basins. And we also have invited Freddy Corredor for September 10th. He will illustrate on behalf of the National University the opportunities in the Pacific Basin, offshore. So great interpretation in the boundaries with Ecuador. So we invite all of you to accompany us that day, September 10th. And we will continue on September 17th with our undeveloped, already discovered reservoirs on the Llanos. We will cover 12 of them on September 12th. And we will close the cycle of those opportunities that we call it in the past minor fields or B-leak, or as I already mentioned it, undeveloped, already discovered reservoirs. On September 24, we will be in the Upper Mac and in the Catatumbo basins, telling you what are the cases there that the agency has already identified. In October 1st, so remember that you will have until September 30 to the time for nominate areas. Also on September 30 will be the deadline for companies to be in some way qualified here for the process for the round 2021 that will take place on November 17th. On October 1st, we will have a special guest. We are going to have Dr. Alejandro Mora, and he is going to talk about the origin, evolution, and petroleum systems of the Lower Magdalena and San Jacinto basins. A very interesting talk. You know that Alejandro is a guy that has great experience in the north part of the country. On October 8th, we will have a special guest as well. We will have the survey, the geological survey, and all of those key guys there. I'm talking about the prospectivity in the Paleozoic rocks in Colombia. On October 15, we will have, on October 15, we will have the MinCiencias group talking to us about 8 research projects that are in progress currently with the MinCiencias. We'll have very great 8 speakers that day. We will continue on October 22nd with the prospectivity of the Paleozoic by the Geological Survey. And on October 29, we'll have the second part of the offshore Caribbean interpretation by iron. We will have on November 5th the presentation of Cesar Mora, prospective resources, conventional and unconventional reservoirs yet to find. The update of all that is just to wrap up all this process. Cesar will talk to us about that on November 5th. And our last talk of a total of 30 workshops will be completed on November 12th. That day, all the group of the ANH is going to summarize what we have done during the complete year. As you know, we started in April 9th, and we will close up this effort on November 12th. And on November 17th, we will have our summit, Petroleum Summit, where you are going to summit, I'm sorry, where you are going to have the chance to find out the opportunities granted to the industry. Okay, just before starting this morning, this special cycle for us, there are four workshops that we encourage you to follow on undeveloped, already discovered reservoirs. So in this map, you have in green the opportunities that are now on the table, and those opportunities are outside the areas, the 34 areas that the agency is covering at this time. So feel free to evaluate those areas and to nominate those areas in the coming weeks. We have estimated reserves in the order of almost 30 million there for oil and 44 BCFs on those opportunities. In red, you see the opportunities that are included in the 34 opportunities that the agency is offering at this time. On those opportunities, so those are part of the round 2021. So if you how do you say, if you apply for one of those blocks and you have those areas inside those, so you have those. I mean, so you can propose to the agency to evaluate those areas, and if you are lucky, you can ask for commerciality later on the process. On those areas in red, I mean, we have estimated around 13 million barrels of reserves and 72 BCFs there. So very interesting, and you are going to find out that there are plenty of opportunities that have been left there, or opportunities that had production in the past and were given back to the agency. Okay, I cannot finish this talk as just to remind everybody that the agency is working very hard in promoting with MinCiencias the technical and the economical support for students of geology and petroleum engineering, and on research on frontier areas, Caribe, basins, Choco onshore and offshore, Tumaco onshore and offshore, Cauca, Patia, Caguán, Cordillera. In order to do that, we are working very hard with MinCiencias. We are providing MinCiencias with all the information that we collected in our 7 projects of play fairways study that we performed last year. And so all that information is going to be in some way illustrated to the students So they will be able to select specific areas or specific topics during this process. So I hope to get some figures of this support and economic support shortly. Okay, so let's jump into the key target of this morning. And as I mentioned to you, today we will cover Sinu and San Jacinto and the Lower Mag only, and we have a couple of great interpreters of the agency. Daniel Rodriguez is a geologist graduated from the National University in 2017. He is a Master of Science in England from the Leeds University in Exploration Geophysics in 2018. And he went back to the country in 2019, and he has worked 3 years for Oxy and the agency. We have also the pleasure to have Lina Serna, a geologist graduated in 2003 from the Universidad de Caldas. She is a Master of Science on Science Geophysics from the National University in 2008, and she has been working for HOCOL and the agency. So I almost forgot something important. Very important, and for those opportunities in undeveloped, already discovered reservoirs, if you are interested, Schlumberger is offering technical and economical support for the companies interested in this kind of deals. So if you want to find out the details of that kind of technical and economic support, please contact Carolina Parra in Schlumberger. If you want, you can call me, and I will pass to you the phone of Carolina Parra, but apparently Schlumberger has some similar examples or reference that in other parts of the country. So don't hesitate to contact them, because that would be maybe a road to approach all these opportunities this time. Okay, so for me it's a pleasure to live with our team. So my team. So we have Daniel with us. So enjoy the talk. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Okay, thank you, Miguel, and thank you to everyone for being here today. I will start sharing my presentation. I hope everyone enjoys it. And if you got any question, do not hesitate to ask for it at the end of both presentations that we have today. We will be glad to answer all of them, and the idea is that you got as much information as you could in order to try to incorporate new areas, or if you are interested to go for the undeveloped already discovered reservoirs. So today we will have a Sinu San Jacinto, as I mentioned before. We'll have undeveloped already discovered reservoirs and an incorporated area at the north of Sinu in the area of the well Manatee. So this is a brief content of what we'll be seeing today in the presentation. So firstly, we'll have the location of the opportunities of the blocks that we are trying to show you, the geological framework of both of them, of Sinu San Jacinto, the stratigraphy, the structural framework. Afterwards, we have Floresanto, a brief presentation, explanation of what has happened at the Floresanto area. Afterwards, we have Paraguay Norte, into what opportunities we think or we reckon we will have there. As well, we will present an incorporated area by the industry, is the Manatee block. And the last and not the least, we'll have Repelon 2D, that is a seismic survey that the ENH with Enterritorio will be acquiring this year. And at the end, the conclusions of the 3 areas. Again, I'll repeat, if you got any question, don't hesitate in ask it. And at the end of both of the talks, we will be happy to answer them. or maybe if it is quite technical, in order to answer it properly, we will answer them via email. So this is the location of the couple of blocks that as Undeveloped Discover Reservoirs we will be offering. Is the SSJS 13, that's Sinu San Jacinto 13, with 135,481 hectares. And at the south, we have this one, that is the SSJS 72, that got 148,324 hectares. Both of them share a part of the Córdoba and Antioquia departments at the northwest of the country. If you have been in our presentations, you will maybe remember these 3 blocks that we are offering in this round. However, we think that into this available area, there will be huge opportunities that got a proven petroleum system, that got production, maybe a bit older the wells because they were drilled in 1945, 1940, 1980. But however, that we think that could be a huge opportunity taking into account the proven petroleum system and the traps related to multilateralism that we have shown before, that maybe taking that into account could lead to a good development of some fields in this couple of areas. So a bit of the geological framework. So first, as stratigraphic setting, try to compare the San Jorge. Sorry. So we have the stratigraphic setting. We will be comparing the lower Magdalena Basin. Try to bear in mind the Corpa to Wara formation, both of them from the upper Miocene, both of them with a fluvial facies with them. So sorry, the environment of the position related to fluvial environments, and that Tubará into the Sinu San Jacinto Basin remains as Tubará. Sometimes it's called Pajuil formation. We got as well the Porquero, that Porquero as the upper we have some sort of deep marine setting, as well as some sort of deltaic. So try to remind that that transition from Porquero into the upper Magdalena Basin will be related to the Floresanto formation. That is the main reservoir, at least at Jaraguay and Floresanto. Both of those couple of wells have shown. And as well, we got Ciénaga de Oro. That Ciénaga de Oro got a transition into the San Jacinto, is called El Carmen. That's important into this talk because Manatí area is not located into the Sinu Basin. It's located at the north of the San Jacinto fault belt. So we will have El Carmen formation as an important, probably, or a possible reservoir. And as well, we got its deeper facies, or its deeper part of the deposition that is going to be related to what is called the Pavo sandstone. As well, I like to point out the San Jacinto fault belt, the importance of formations at San Jacinto, Chengue, what is called the Maco conglomerate, and the San Cayetano formation. Both of them because, as you will see later on, at the north, where the Manatí well is located and where the Repelon seismic survey will be located, we have these units outcropping. It's quite important that they are outcropping because into Bullerengue, into this Manatí, they will be, or they are targeted as the main reservoir. So having a good understanding of the units that are outcropping into some closed traps will have a huge insight of the prospectivity of the area. This is a couple of facies map for the blocks of Floresanto and Jaraguay to try to understand which sort of environment do we have from the Oligocene and the late Miocene to early Pliocene. So we have here for the Oligocene that we have a shallow marine environment. That means that we have a surface, a proximal surface. We have huge implications into a possible reservoirs, taking into account that in the proximal surface, we have a good development of sandstones. Into the late Miocene to early Pliocene, we have as well the same environment. However, we have, or we will begin to have these sort of phases that we will be involved, and we will have that transition between the surface sandstones into a more deltaic environment. That's quite important in terms of the reservoir, and try to understand which phases or which sort of environment will have as smooth bars, as channels, and that will be related to the main reservoirs into those areas. This is a bit of the structural framework that is presented in the paper from Mantilla Pimiento 2009. I like to point out that this is a composed seismic section from different seismic surveys all across the northwestern part of Colombia. And it's important to bear in mind that we pass from the main forest basin that will be related to San Jorge Basin in the into the lower Magdalena Valley. We have afterwards the transition to the San Jacinto fault belt, where we have some sort of transpressive faults with flower structures with high angle faults. You will see the difference between this, the angularity of this fault in here and the ones that we have when we got a completely compressive system with some imbrications and a fault belt related to this one. And we got in between the San Jacinto and the offshore part, we got the Sinu Basin that is a fossil accretionary prism. We got a huge dynamic of mood diapirs controlling the main structures. You will see that we have the difference in thicknesses between sediments that will be related to thin sedimentary deposition to the dynamics of the mood diaprism. So, as I mentioned, we have an active accretionary prism, that is this one. We have a fossil accretionary prism, that is the one related to the Sinu Basin. And we have the San Jorge Plateau Forest Basin, that is the lower Magdalena Basin. So, taking into account again that these areas, the main traps we have identified are related to mood diapirs. I will explain a bit of the mood diapirism, that the mood diapirism could be present into these areas and will have a similarity with the salt tectonics. All of you that have seen the Mexico or maybe Brazil, that Brazil got a huge salt tectonics, all of those traps and those all of those petroleum systems are related to pre-salt. All of those are quite important. So at least into some rheological properties, we have some similarity between salt and between the mood diapirs. It's important to bear in mind that in seismic, we'll have some differences that are related to velocity and density. You can see in here that we have those ellipsoid structures. Those ellipsoid structures that are like constrained due to the Sinu Basin, those are related hugely to the dynamic of mood diapirism. So you can see here in blue, all of those mood diapirs, and which is most important, it's the oil and gas seeps related to the mood diapirs. If you see in here, for example, we got a huge amount of oil of gas seeps related to those mood diapirs. And something that we have realized, taking into account the oil seeps and the wells that have been drilled, is that it seems that in this part of the basin, where these couple of blocks are located, we have an oil-prone subbasin, and there is a like it's turning into gas-prone going westward. So, as I mentioned before, we got thin tectonic sediments that could be identified because of its difference in thicknesses. We have welt faults. That welt faults, for maybe people that is not familiar with this sort of dynamics, is this sort of fault where you got juxtaposition of sediment just because the mud, the whole shale or the mud that was in here have been drained into the structure that we are looking at. So when you got no more source of sediment or material between the layers, it's the juxtaposition of that creates a fault that is called wet fault. In Sinu San Jacinto mud diapirs, we have a strong relation with oil and gas tip distribution, as I've shown you before. We got a different sort of traps. So the main one that we will be focusing for Floresanto and Haraway is this one in here. So first, I like to show you Sinu San Jacinto 1-3 Floresanto. So a bit of the history of exploration. Despite of being underexplored, this basin has a long exploration history since 1945. One well with commercial production, Floresanto 1, it was depleted after 2 years with a total production of 28,730 barrels with 51 degrees of API. A successful production test in another 13 wells. Unfortunately for the area, all of those tests and those shows were considered as not commercial. And in the whole basin, 191 wells have been drilled. I like to mention that Tonga 1, that is this well, this one has been drilled recently by Gran Tierra. They were looking for some Eocene reservoirs, and we'll see it later on. So this is the database of the seismic. We got San Jacinto 1-3 Floresanto. We got 2D seismic surveys. We have plenty of seismic surveys. We have 10 seismic surveys in total that range from the Urabá 67 up to some surveys that have been acquired by the ANH in 2014 and 2015 with a total length of 1,047 kilometers. This is the database of the different wells at Floresanto. We have into the area 20 wells or nearby the area as the Limon and Limon 2 Lorencito wells. We have 20 wells that have been drilled. As I was mentioning, Tonga 1 was drilled in 2018 with a total depth of almost 8,000 feet. And as well, we have the whole Floresanto well, the whole campaign that was by Soconomobile in 1944 and 1945 with different depths. Most of them are shallow. However, the deepest wells as Floresanto 1 and Floresanto 10 show interesting options. For example, we have Floresanto 1 at 6,938. This is the infrastructure to Floresanto and Paraguay. We got the main oil pipeline, that is the Terminal Coveñas, the main station that is away from 130 kilometers. And we got as well nearby gas pipelines, such as the Montería, Jobo Tablón, and Cerro Matoso. Montería is 58 kilometers apart, Jobo Tablón is 80 kilometers apart, and Cerro Matoso 77 kilometers apart. So all of these distances are taken from the middle of the, or at the edge of the couple of the areas that we are showing today. So generalities about Floresanto, specifically to the Floresanto field, where 12 wells were drilled from May of 1945 to August of 1947. Most of them were drilled by Soconomobile and classified as producer wells. However, formal production was only declared in the wells Floresanto 1 and Floresanto 6. 10 of 12 wells were shallow, an average of 1,500 feet. And the other two, Floresanto 1 and Floresanto 10, reached total depths of, as I was telling you, 7,000 and around 11,000 respectively. So Floresanto 1 had an oil production, Floresanto Pajuil formation. We started in December of 1944. At August of 1945, it was depleted or at least it was abandoned, with a total production of 28,730 barrels with 51 degrees of API. Floresanto 6 as well was the other well that showed some production. And during tests, the well produced 42 barrels in 12 hours of 50 degrees of API. This information was taken from Ecopetrol 2000. This is the well that was drilled by Gran Tierra that we are allowed to present to you because it's into the area. The well Tonga 1 was drilled by Gran Tierra in 2018 with a total depth of 8,000 feet. The well tried to find the presence of hydrocarbons in Eocene sandstones, change formation, and characterize units below the Miocene discordance. Despite of finding the reservoir, the shows were not economically viable. Also, the well was plugged and abandoned. What is important from this well that they find the reservoir, good quality of the reservoir, that they got a huge amount of gas shows. Unfortunately, there weren't any oil shows. However, we got presence of good reservoirs and we had gas shows as well. This is the seismic interpretation of Floresanto into a deep line, where we think that maybe into these horizons that are related to Floresanto formation, that is this one, the one Floresanto, it seems a bit more orange than it really is. And we think that the trap in here will be the unlapping of those horizons, of those sediments with the mud diapirs. That maybe that's what Floresanto found into that time. Of course, they didn't take into account the presence of mud diapirs. They thought that all of these horizons were involved into anticlines, as well as Haraway. So what we're trying with the ENH is to propose that maybe taking into account that we have mud diapism, that we got seismic, that maybe improving the seismic quality to acquire 3D seismic, we could maybe develop or characterize in terms of geometry a bit better in relation to the mud diapirs, and maybe improve the development of these wells or these fields that definitely got a proven petroleum system. Now I'm going to show you Haraguay Norte, that is the Sinu San Jacinto 7-2. Some generalities about the area. So Haraguay is located out the south of the Sinu Basin. The Haraguay area rocks from the Oligocene Maralu Formation, that is the equivalent to the lower Ciénaga de Oro at the lower Magdalena Basin, to the Pliocene Corpa Formation have been drilled. Well targets were the equivalent of the lower Porquero Formation, Floresanto Formation, and Ciénaga de Oro Formation, that is the Pavo Sandstones or Pavo Formation. Total depths of the Haraguay Norte wells were reached between 2,500 and 5,000, and the well Haraguay Sur reached 8,000. Oil found in production tests and sieves in the area are considered as light oil. We have oil that is above 40 degrees of API. The Pavo sandstones are considered as the best reservoir in the area. Haraguay Norte 1, during production tests in the Floresanto Formation, it produced 3.5 barrels of 48 degrees of API at intervals and 6.3 barrels of 47 degrees of API. The well produced at its peak 126 barrels of oil per day. Haraguay Norte 3, during tests only, it recovered 1 gallon of oil. We'll see that it's not just 1 gallon, it's 1.5 gallons. So this is the database of the wells. 14 wells have been drilled into the area. Wells by the ENH, that is the well Tierra Alta, that the Universidad de Caldas presented a couple of weeks ago. We have Pone 1, El Faro 1 track, Haraguay Norte, Haraguay Norte 2, 3, 4, 5, Haraguay Sur 1, Parumas 1, Piru 1, Rio Nuevo 1, San Rafael, and Tucura. All of them, most of them, were drilled during the 80s with different sort of depths drilled. and all of the data are available in terms of logs and the company reports. This is the database, the Seismic. We got 2D seismic surveys. We got 6 different seismic surveys with a total length of 681 kilometers. The first one is Sinu Sur 2D 2008, Sinu San Jacinto Sur 2D 2008. We got as well Córdoba Floresanto, Urabá, the survey acquired by the ENH in 2014, that is the Sinu 3. And as well, we got the Urabá Sinu survey. So let's take a look of the producer well that it was drilled by Petrocol. Petrocol drilled a total of 10 wells from 1981 to 1984. Jaraguay Norte with a total depth of 4,337 feet. Got a reservoir at the upper sands from Floresanto formation, as well as San Rafael and El Pavo sands. The structure at the time of when the well was drilled, it was thought that it was the Jaraguay anticline with an initial production of 32.8 barrels per day with a total cumulative production of 700. At the status, the well was plugged up and abandoned due to the termination of the association contract, and the production declined the last day to 17 barrels per day. As I mentioned before, the oil recovered into this area got 48 degrees of API. Let's talk about the sort of dry wells that most of them are not totally dry. Jaraguay Norte 2, the target was Chengue Formation. However, it found the Maralu Formation. It was established by stratigraphy and logs interpretation. We got El Pavo Formation that are related to progressive sandstones that we see the influence of those transition phases into an environment of deltaic environment. We got shows in San Rafael sandstones and El Pavo Formation, which were improved. We have Jaraguay Norte 3. It founded the Chengue Formation from the Eocene with some pelagic shales, chert, and conglomerates. The conglomerates then were interpreted at the Corpa Formation, the one that were found shallower. As well, it found San Rafael sandstones, which had 6 DSTs. We have different 6 tests, and half barrel of 23 degrees of API were recovered at the shallower section. And into the deep section, a gallon were recovered 38 degrees of API. Jaraguay Norte 4, it is considered to have a different structure. Maybe it's compartmentalized because of the diaparism that we got into the area, and it has shows into the San Rafael sandstones. We got as well Jaraguay Norte 5. It drilled as a development well near well 1. It has no shows and either no tests. We got Jaraguay Sur 1 that target it found Corpa Formation directly over El Pavo sandstone. It means that it didn't find San Rafael sandstones or the equivalent to the lower part of Upper Porquero. It means it didn't find any Floresanto formation. And the last well that we will be presenting from this area is the Rio Nuevo 1, that it was drilled in 1982 with a total depth of 6,800 feet. It got shows during drilling in San Rafael sandstones and El Pavo sandstones. They were tested, but unfortunately, no information is available about the results of those tests. This is a deep line that we have interpreted, that we see in the relation between Jaraguay and this smooth diapir over there. We think that maybe into the other flank could be something interesting, but maybe going a bit westward toward this flank. Now, I would like to show you Sinu San Jacinto 3-1. This is quite important in terms that it's an area proposed by the industry for this round. It means that there is a huge interest into this area. And if any other company would like to propose into this area, could do, we have an interesting bid for this area. The location, this one is located even northern in comparison to the ones that we find in Paraguay and Floresanto. This is the Manatee area. This is the Sinu San Jacinto 3.1 with a total area of 33,402 hectares into the departments of Atlántico and Bolívar. What is the importance of the geological mapping here? It's about which units from the San Jacinto fault belt are outcropping and are maybe getting below the area and forming the main traps. So due to transpressive dynamic because of strike slip faults at the north outcrops units from the Miocene and Pliocene, we got Tubara formation and Ivacharo formation. At the south, units from the Paleocene to Oligocene outcrop, we got Carmen formation, Chengue formation, Maco, that are the conglomerates of Maco, and San Cayetano formation. Those are the units that are outcropping into this area. So this is the database, the seismic. To the seismic surveys, we got plenty of seismic surveys. We got 11 seismic surveys in total with a total length of 425 kilometers. Most of them were acquired during the 70s. However, we got some of recent seismic surveys, and you will be encouraged a bit more when you see that into the western part of the area will be acquiring Repelon 2D. So this is the database of the wells. We got only one well drilled into the area. It was drilled in 1953 with a total depth of 11,000. It's important to mention that this well was perfectly drilled. I mean, it was into a structure. However, despite the fact that it was previous to the seismic, it showed an important test of gas. However, for the age, the test or the gas wasn't a target. It was drilled by Shell and Condor SA in 1953, as I mentioned before. The well had a total depth of 11,000, passing through the units of Carmen formation, Maco conglomerates, and Luruaco fish. 11 cores were taken and 4 DSTs, despite the fact that the well had gas and oil shows and had gas production during the test. The well was abandoned and plugged up. This was because at that time, gas or maybe like oil in that amount weren't commercial or wasn't an interest. Those are the 4 DSTs that were taken into the well. We can see that we have gas and mud, gas and salty water. We have gas and mud and gas. We have fresh water. We have at the third DST that we have a production. It was a longer test than the other one. It lasts 71 hours and 38 minutes with a production of 60 kilo cubic feet, thousands of cubic feet per day. That's huge. It means that we got a proven system with nice production of gas. So as I was mentioning, for the time, it wasn't an interest, but I reckon that for today, it could be a huge opportunity. This is the seismic interpretation. This is a strike line that we have seen into the area. We got middle Miocene to up to Paleocene into this area. You see here normal faults because firstly at the fourth stage of the basin, and afterwards we have the inversion of those faults because of the dynamic of transpressing. However, not of those faults were completely moved into inverse faults. So we have identified 2 sort of traps. The first one is a structural trap that is related to some sort of anticline because of the faults. And we got as well, above the basement, we got huge reflections, 2 or 3 cycles that has huge amplitudes. And we think that huge amplitudes are related to the development of some carbonate or some limestones, the same or related to the discoveries at the north by Hocol of Bullerén. So we got as well here the same development with the deep line where the Manatee well was drilled. We got up to Paleocene, we can see that all of these huge sequence of the Neogene and Paleogene showed gas and oil shows. We got as well the development of some amplitudes that we think are related to limestones or the development of carbonates in platform. So those are opportunities that we think the companies that are interested into this area are looking for. This one is the repellent to the seismic that will be acquired by the ANH and Territorio in 2021 into the San Jacinto Basin or the San Jacinto fault belt. What is the idea of the seismic survey? Is to connect local surveys from the Sinu 15 and local surveys from Manatee. Unfortunately, we could not connect at all because of some sort of environmental restrictions that we have into this area. However, we are connecting with regional surveys acquired as well by the ENH. So we think that understanding in terms, at least in the geometrical understanding of the Eocene, of the Paleocene, of the Oligocene sediment that we have into this area could improve a lot the prospectivity into these areas. So conclusions for Sinu and San Jacinto. Floresanto and Jaraguay areas have a structural dominance by mud diapirs that could be trapping sediments from the Floresanto formation and El Pavo sandstone. At the moment of drilling, this concept was not taken into account. Floresanto has a proven petroleum system with two producers wells. Floresanto 1 that produced a total of 28,730 barrels with 51 degrees of API, and Floresanto 6 that produced 42 barrels during the test with 50 degrees of API in 12 hours. In the Jaraguay North area, 5 wells were drilled with one producer well. The well Jaraguay Norte had a cumulative production of 700 barrels of 48 degrees of API with a peak production of 126 barrels per day. Despite of not having production, the rest of the wells found with quality reservoirs, with shows and even DFPs with production of gallon and a half, Jaraguay Norte 3. Most of the wells, despite of not declaring commerciality into the Floresanto and Jaraguay area, have shown significant amount of oil and gas shows. It is worth to bear in mind that gas was not a matter of interest at the spud dates of most of the wells. Manatee is a recent incorporated area by the industry to the round, this present round. Into the area, the ANH identified 2 types of traps. The first one, a structural traps with anti-plants that involves Miocene sediments, and the second one that are possibly stratigraphic traps with development of carbonates from Paleocene to an Eocene age, similar to the discoveries of the Bullerengue wells at the north. The ENH within Territorio will be acquiring a 2D seismic program of 286 kilometers with the purpose of connecting regional seismic lines and local programs nearby the area that's been incorporated into the round. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, we will be glad to answer any question. The idea is you to bear in mind which areas are available and which one have been incorporated by the industry. So now I will let Lina to continue with the presentation about the Lower Magdalena Valley. So thank you, everyone.
Good morning. Can you see my screen? No?
We hear you, Lina.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. As a part of the Colombia Round 2021, this is the presentation of the Lower Magdalena Valley Basin with undeveloped discoveries and incorporated areas for the Lower Magdalena Valley. The content of this presentation corresponds to an introduction, location, the infrastructure, geological framework, and developed already discovered reservoirs such as Coral 3, Momposina, La Mocha Consuelo, Guamito La Pinta, Brillante, San Ángel. And the other part is an incorporated area by the industry that is being 46. And in that part, we see some characteristics or some things, specific things about location, database, seismic interpretation, and prospectivity. That introduction, in this section, the ANH is offering 6 areas where there was some discovery or production and they were returned to the ANH. Some of them are located within areas of the Colombia Round 2021 as La Mocha Consuelo, Guamito La Pinta, Brillante. And others are in available areas by the ANH, and they have identified opportunities such as Coral 3, that is located to the southern part of the Lower Magdalena Valley, Momposina, and San Ángel, located to the north part of the edificio. On the other hand, this section includes an area nominated by the industry in the Lower Magdalena, named Beam 46, located on the Sicuco Hike. As main infrastructure nearby to the blocks, the basin has different gas pipelines as El Difícil Barranquilla, Guape Cincelejo, Tablón Cerro Matoso, that connects to the north with Tablón Mamonal, and oil pipelines as Caño Limón, Coveñas, Ayacucho Coveñas, and ODC or Oleoducto de Colombia. And in that part is Floresanto. That is geological framework. This is a geological setting and stratigraphic chart work by Universidad de Caldas ANH in 2020. The Lower Magdalena Valley Basin is a 4-arc basin located in the northwestern of Colombia. It is limited to the west, and northwest by San Jacinto Fault Bed, to the east by Santa Marta Bucaramanga Fault System, that is the limit between Lower Magdalena Valley and Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta and Cesar Rancheria Basin. To the south and southeast, the limit is the Central Cordillera. This basin is divided into subbasins. To the north is the subbasin, the Plateau subbasin, and to the southern is the San Jorge subbasin. The Lower Magdalena Valley is considered mature basin by their production. That is more than 300 million barrels of oil equivalent. Is a light oil, wet, and dry gas prone area that was filled from Oligocene, mostly of clastics with some carbonates, such as calizas de Sicuco or calizas del Difícil, which were deposited in a flat subduction for arc setting. Has been found hydrocarbons both in clastic facies as Ciénaga de Oro, or porquero onto our units in the plastic phases, or that the ages changes from the Oligocene to Upper Miocene. In Tubara formation, there is considered a reservoir. For example, La Mocha and Consuelo found production in Tubara formation, and the another wells, Suamito and La Pinta, and found production in Porquero, and the more common, the wells of the lower Magdalena Valley is the Ciénaga de Oro formation, the most common reservoir in that zone. And the main hydrocarbon sources found mainly in the Eocene and Oligocene sequences. This is the map of the anomaly acquired by ANH and Lithosphere in 2015 that shows morphological features as basement structures allow the tectonic segmentation of the basin with the formation in two deposenters. For example, like here is the Plateau Depocenter that is separated to the south on San Jorge Depocenter by the hike, the Maganguez Pupo hike. The Plateau Depocenter and San Jorge, the depths reach this basement between 5,000 meters to 7,000 meters. In Plateau Depocenters, the basement is is deeper than San Jorge. Other features are the positive anomalies representing the high basement as El Difícil high that is in trend with the Arjona and Brillante structure. This trend corresponds to several discoveries, gas discoveries, and oil such as Arjona, Brillante, El Difícil, and one discovery that it found in the forest that was San Angel. Most hydrocarbon accumulations are found around the Plateau Depocenter with light oil and gas condensate to the east, with gas to the west, for example, in Magangué and Huepaje or La Creciente, and dry gas fields in the southern lower Magdalena Bay. I show you some areas that was undeveloped already discovered reservoirs. The first area is Coral. Coral is located in the southern part of the lower Magdalena, more properly in the San Jorge subbasin, between Esperanza, Bin 8 and Bin 8-1 blocks. There is an available block with an area of more 3,600 hectares. The municipalities are here in Coral is Pueblo Nuevo, corresponding to Córdoba department. In the Coral area, there are two 3D seismic surveys that overlap at their corners. The surveys are Esperanza 3D 2009 and Beam 8 3D 2013. And A lines of 2D seismic belongs to these surveys: Ayapel 91, Córdoba San Jacinto 90, Jobo-Tablón 75, and Jobo-Tablón 79. The wells located in that block is Coral 3, Coral 3, Coral 13, located in that part, and Tablón 6. The Coral 3 was a well that produced in 1977 gas, but it was abandoned. And Coral 13 and Tablón 6 were plugged and abandoned without tests. Coral 3 is located in the structural chain of the Jobo-Tablón and Nelson gas fields. Jobo-Tablón reported a cumulative production of 9,300 BCFs, and the Nelson field 120 BCFs reported in 2011 by ANH and AFIT. And to the south of Coral 3, there is a new discovery that corresponds to Arrecife, that in the tests proved between 3 to 10 million cubic feet per day in 2018. The Coral 3 well was drilled by Interpol in 1977, reaching a depth of 8,500 feet. The main reservoir corresponds to the sandstone of the Ciénaga de Oro formation, trapped in an anticline fault, where the closure area estimated by the operator was 720 acres. Coral 3 was completed as a gas producer with an initial rate of 6 million cubic feet per day on a 1864 inches from choke with weight HP 2060 25 psi from the Ciénaga de Oro formation. The gross interval is 122 feet, and net gas sand thickness attains 36 feet in the Ciénaga de Oro formation. The upper part of the Porquero formation is sandier with abundant coal beds, fair to good gas shows in these intervals. These shows were the first indication of gas within the Porquero formation detected in the Jobo-Tablón area that is producing now in Porquero formation in the Esperanza block that operated by Canacol. The recoverable reserves were estimated to be of the order of 16.2 BCF, corresponding to 58% of original gas in place. That is estimated by the company or by the operator by 27.6 BCF. In the production tests, 4 intervals were tested, corresponding to 4 sand zones in the Ciénaga de Oro, where the gas-water contact was in 7,200 feet. This is the gas-water contact that it corresponds to each zone. The production test table is showing the gas production rate and the head pressures with different shocks. Coral 3 was completed as a gas producer with an initial rate of 6.1 million cubic feet per day On that choke, we choke with a well head pressure equal to 2,600 psi from the Ciénaga de Oro in that interval. And this is the different records taken for coral free, and it is the neutron density that is a good cross between the curves. Intercol in that date in 1980 calculated the maximum recoverable reserves using two methods. One method was the rock volume, and the other method was material balance, where the original gas in place by rock volume gave a total value for all the open zones of 27.6 BCF with a total recovery of 16.2 BCF. By material balance, the original gas in place, it was calculated by 29 BCFs. The maximum possible recovery for the coral-free well before being invited by the water was 16 BCF through the open zones, and the final maximum recovery for all the block that it corresponded to this part that is a structural map taken from the report of the Intercol that estimating a new prospect up deep to the coral free. So the final maximum recovery for all the block was calculated by 22.1 BCF. It corresponds to 5.9 BCF recoverable. And this zone, what is the water in coral free, could produce 2 BCF of gas, which would be recovered only by drilling a new well up deep to the coral free. And this structure could produce a total of 8.5 BCFs of gas in this area. This the seismic interpretation, there are two lines, or a straight composite line that is an overlay that corresponds to a 3D of beam 8, and this is the 3D of Esperanza 2009. And in this part is located the well coral 3. In that part is the well coral 9, and to the northeast is the well Palmer 1. Is showing in here in an elongated anticline, although the structure was probably originated by reverse faults that affect up to the lower Miocene of southwest northeast main orientation. There are also a series of faults or small faults, normal fault lines with east-west orientation segmenting the structure in compartments, as we see in the structure line. And here is in the deep line, we represent the structure, the elongated anticline. In the evaluation of volumetrics calculated by the ANH, it defines an area of interest where coral free is located. And in the high estimated that corresponds on this area against to the fault is estimated of 523 acres, giving resources of 14.27 BCFs. This is the high estimated. And the best estimated is in area 138 acres, and the resources corresponding to 1.79 BCFs, having their recovery factor between 0.85 to 0.9. The another area is Momposina, that corresponding are an area of 856 hectares. This area includes the Sicuco and Mompos municipalities in the Bolivar department, and is located in the part of the lower Magdalena in the Mangangue-Sicuco High. Is near to the Huepajeayombe field and Samana and La Creciente field, and to the southeast, the Sicuco, Boquete, and Zenon field, and to the northeast. Excuse me. In Momposina area, there are 14 to these seismic lines, belongs to 5 surveys. That's 4 surveys are Sicuco 64, Sicuco 76, 88, 90, Detalle 90, and Sur 9. And in this area, the unique well that is located here is Momposina 1. This well was drilled in 1990 by Ecopetrol with a TED of 8,082 feet. The main objective was the limestones and sandstones from Ciénaga de Oro formation in a faulted structural height. The field started production in 1998 and was active to September 2009, with the following accumulated volumes: more than 90,000 barrels of crude, 2.98 BCF of gas, and 800 barrels of water. And the remaining reserves calculated by Ecopetrol in 2010 are 111 BCF with an original gas in place of 17 BCF. It was closed by low volume gas production, presence of hydrogen sulfide, and high water production. On October 2014, the operator informed to the ANH their decision of voluntary termination of the agreement of exploitation. And on January of 2018, the relinquishment was signed. The well closure was producing 3 barrels of condensate, 500,000 cubic feet per day of gas, and 600 barrels per day of water. Momposina corresponds to a structural high controlled by the basement. This is a deep line to the west to the east direction that is showing the anticline controlled by the basement paleo height. And in that part, in this part, Momposina showing the production of the Ciénaga de Oro that corresponds to the yellow horizon. The remaining reserves for September 2009, estimated by Ecopetrol, was 400,000 barrels of oil and 11 BCF, taking into account an original oil in place of 500 barrels of oil and 17 BCFs of original gas in place. Another opportunity or field discovered was La Mocha and Consuelo, located in the block BIM-2-1, over in the Colombia round. This block has an area of 52,200 hectares, and the municipalities are Plato, Santa Bárbara, Santa Ana, and Bolívar. In the area where I located the Consuelo and La Mocha structures is the 3D Seismic 3D 2010 and 6 2D seismic lines from Nueva Granada 2019 and El Retiro 76. In BIM-2-1 block, there are 10 wells, of which 5 had gas production in the 60s, such as Consuelo 1, La Mocha 1 and 2, and Consuelo 2 and 3, drilled by the Texas Petroleum Company. The last well drilled in that block was Cañaguate 1, drilled by SK Innovation in 2012, but it was a dry well by the absence of the reservoir. In the BIM-2-1 area in the 60s, the Texas Petroleum Company drilled 2 structures, the Consuelo structure and La Mocha, in order to test hydrocarbon accumulation at the level of the Tuara Formation. La Mocha 1 and La Mocha 2 were shallow wells that reached a depth of 3,509 feet and 3,150 feet, respectively. Both wells are considered independent reservoirs, and they were gas producers. There had cumulative production almost 633 million cubic feet of gas from May 1969 to December 1971. La Mocha 1 well block is discarded on having additional reserves due to the high to the high water. And La Mocha 2 seems to the best producer with the still additional reserves. And another structure was the Consuelo. Consuelo 1, 2, and 3 were shallow wells. This is Consuelo 1, 3, and 2. Were shallow wells with depths less than 4,000 feet. The 3 wells were gas producers, and they had a cumulative production until 1971 of 4.5 BCF. Consuelo wells were drilled near to gas water contact, and in 1973 they were completely invaded by water. This slide corresponds to tests and production in La Mocha wells. These are summary. La Mocha 1 was tested by a year and in a 3 intervals of tubular formation, where in general the gas production declined and the water production increased. This is the results of these tests given by these intervals. And La Mocha 2 opened the interval 2,331 2,862 feet with different chokes produce gas without water production. La Mocha 1 produced 195 millions of cubic feet of gas by 1 year with 8 months, and La Mocha 2 had a cumulative production of 437 millions of cubic feet of gas. The total production was 632 8 million cubic feet of gas from May 1969 to December 1971. And the Consuelo wells was tested. This is the resource by each well. In Consuelo 1 was tested in these intervals here, and this is the results for different chokes, and this is the test time, and this is the result of production gas. In this date, May 1971, increased water and the well was closed by high water production. Consuelo 2, in these intervals that was tested with different chokes, produced between 2,340 to 2,760. And this is the results of the water production. But in between February to April 70, the production stopped. And in May, the well was closed. And Consuelo 3, this is the different tests in the intervals with different chokes. In that date, the well had, or the tested had 100% water and did not flow again. This is the results of the production by the time that each well produced during the activity. For example, Consuelo 1 had a cumulative production of 2 BCFs. It started in June 1967. And Consuelo 3 has a cumulative production 2.2 BCF of gas. And Consuelo 2 had a cumulative production of 1.6 million of cubic feet. The cumulative production for all of the Consuelo wells between 1966 to 1971 was 4.5 BCF. For La Mocha and Consuelo, the operator calculated the reserves and production forecast. For La Mocha, the recoverable reserves was given by Ecopetrol 2.9 BCFs, and La Mocha 2 block seems to be the best producer with still additional reserves. And La Mocha 1 block is discarded of having additional reserves due to the high water cut. The production forecast for La Mocha 2, that is the better for the forecast, calculating the following production. Until April 17, the average production was 1 million cubic feet per day. From July 70 to December 71, 200,000 cubic feet per day without water. And the production forecast was for the first year, 2 million cubic feet per day. The second year, 1 million cubic feet per day. And for third year, 1 million cubic feet. The recoverable reserves after 3 years will be 1 BCF, equivalent to 56% of the estimated reserves. And for Consuelo, the reserves were calculated by Texas Petroleum Company and by Ecopetrol. By Texas, the reserves was calculated as gas in place, gas original in place, that's 10 BCF, and accumulated production for 5 BCF. The recoverable reserves was 5.5 BCF. And for Ecopetrol, the estimated recoverable was 2.5 BCF. In the production forecast, in accordance with the calculated reserves, 2.5 BCF for the remaining producing area in the Consuelo structure. The production in a new well would be a rate of 2 million cubic feet per day. It would be possible to reach a total recovery in 40 months. It is an area where the water increase provides the energy of the reservoir. At the seismic interpretation, seismic section are showing the structures drilled by La Mocha and Consuelo wells corresponding to a faulted anticline that is La Mocha. That's the case of La Mocha structure, where La Mocha 2 is located in the honey bowl of the fault, and La Mocha 1 in the footwall, no deeper than 4,000 feet, with a gas reservoir at the Tubara formation. This structure is controlled by the diapir development that is affecting the units below the upper porquero. This is the strike line that cut the La Mocha structure, and is the Tubara horizon, corresponding to, this is the La Mocha 2 block, and this is the La Mocha 1 block. And the deep line is cutting the two structures. This is the structure of Consuelo structure, and this is the La Mocha 1 structure. Consuelo structure is corresponding an anticline with a four-way deep closure in the upper Miocene deposits. In the B21 area, we can find other different types of plays, different to Tubara, such as traps associated to mud diapirism that is folding both flanks in different levels in the middle porquero formation, and creating thickness differences in both sides of the diaper. The amplitude anomalies, for example, in that part in intraporquero levels associated to lateral changes of phases and affected by the influence of the diaper. Another type of play is associated to structural heights controlled by local normal faults and the configuration of basement that are affecting that are affecting the basement and the Ciénaga de Oro formation. And for the prospectivity, define an area of interest where La Mocha 2 is located, with an area in the high estimated of 988 acres, giving resources of 18 BCF. And for Consuelo Up Deep and Consuelo Norte, areas of 374 and 243 acres respectively, with resources of 2.5 and 3.7 BCF, taking into account an 80 recovery factor. The INH estimated remaining reserves in La Mocha southern block, that part of 18.8 BCF, high estimated, and in Consuelo 6.2 BCF. In addition, the prospective resources of 10 identified leads are calculated and on the block B21, and is from the interpretation with 19.9 BCF high estimated. The another area is corresponding to Guamito La Pinta discoveries are located in the Bin 40 area to the south part of the Bin 40 of rare in the Colombia RAM. The area of this block is 91,266 hectares, and the departments, this is located in between the departments Cesar and Magdalena, and this is municipalities. As a database, is existing 2D seismic in the Bin 40 area. There are 16 seismic surveys that up to a length of 1,100 kilometers within the area. These surveys have been acquired from 1976 to 2019. In the last year, the INH acquired a new survey, seismic survey, that is corresponding to Arjona 2D 2019 and Nueva Granada 2D 2019. In the Bin 40 area is the volume La Pinta 3D 2010 of 58 square kilometers of area into the block. The wells, the Guamito was drilled by Chevron. Guamito is located in near to La Pinta, more or less 700 meters. Was drilled by Chevron in 1975 and reached a depth of 12,060 feet. It produced gas and condensate in the Intraportero unit and Ciénaga de Oro formation. The well test results indicate presence of liquid and gaseous hydrocarbons and the Intraportero level. 120 barrels of oil per day with 47.7 degrees of API. 750,000 cubic feet per day of gas, and at the top of the Ciénaga de Oro formation, 406 barrels of oil per day with 46.9 degrees of API per 1 million cubic feet of gas. The well was closed on June 1979 and abandoned in 1984 because the gas was not commercial at that time. Another well was La Pinta 1 drilled in 2009 by Petrolífera, and it reached a total depth of 11,250 feet. This well produced from the Upper Porquero and Ciénaga de Oro formation since December 2011 to January 2012. The cumulative production was of 3,100 barrels of condensate, more than 12 million of cubic feet of gas, and the commerciality was not declared. The definitive abandon was carried out in 2013. The La Pinta 1 was in a period of short production tests in the States during the 23 days of the first semester, an average production of 163 thousand were recorded. Zero was sold, and this value was burned, where the facilities of the field were removed and the itself was left closed with a 5-tip plug. The definitive abandon was carried out in 2015. Guamito was tested by 4 DSTs, 3 of them in Ciénaga de Oro formation, and the DST5 in Porquero in the intervals. This is the DST5, the interval of the Porquero formation, and had better productions. This is DST5. The DST3 had better productions in Ciénaga de Oro. For example, a mean production of 1.85 million cubic feet per day, 406 barrels of oil per day on condensate, of 46.9 degrees API. And La Pinta was tested by 2 DSTs in Ciénaga de Oro and 1 DST in Porquero, with the next results. The DST Porquero formation in these intervals that is corresponding to that interval in between 7,804 to 7,834 feet. And this is the results per day. And the API gravity was for the oil was 46.5 degrees. And for the Ciénaga de Oro, these intervals was tested with the DST, and this is the results. For the DST1, they produce 14.89 cubic feet, and they are 94.62. Petrolifera reported to the Ministry of Mines and Energy in February 2012 the last accumulated production, where 3,176 of oil, 524 of water, and 12.6 million cubic feet of gas. This is the date. The accumulated production was the December 2011 to February 2012. That is the last reported of the production in La Pinta 1. In the seismic interpretation, it corresponds the La Pinta and Guamito. It corresponds a fault and anticline that dissected the Ciénaga de Oro formation by normal faults, by a small normal faults that is segmenting the deposition. where Guamito 1 well drilled the crest of the structure and La Pinta 1 drilled the east compartment. Another stratigraphic play associated to amplitude anomalies at the level of Porquero Formation plain, marine Porquero corresponding to a combination of shale with the interlayer sands that are part of the late sedimentary field of one of the submarine canyons. And this is the two-way time map at the top of Ciénaga de Oro Formation, and that this is corresponding to the structure, to the Guamito La Pinta structure. And the strike line shows a major electric normal fault that is corresponding to direction south to the north direction. The strike line shows a major electric normal fault, but bounding easy basement high northwestward prograding section with the fine platform. And in the southern part is the Guamito La Pinta structure dominated by normal faults and is being controlled by the north, controlled to the north by mud the diaphragm. And at the same time is affecting the more recent sequences that the diaphorism. Other types of plays are seismic or lat patterns of Oligocene to lower Miocene area, evidencing the transgression to the southeast of shallow marine deposits. Carbonates of early Miocene age over basement paleoheights controlled by normal faults. Slope deposits involving two grout strata, for example, MTC or mass transport complex, and stratigraphic traps, that's onlaps and pinch outs. This is a correlation with gamma ray and resistivities with the tests in the Ciénaga de Oro Formation that the wells Guamito and La Pinta, and reflects the different sandy intervals in contrast with the thin clay levels, it corresponding to a more production of gas in Guamito, and La Pinta is more producing the oil. This is a measure area for the Guamito La Pinta structure where there is a faulted way for closure, and the best estimated area is 462 acres and high estimated 945 acres, where the resources for the best estimate calculated is 7.49 BCF, having 85 recovery factor. In this area, we have the Guamito La Pinta considered as an already discovered reservoir with a contingent resources of 24.58 BCF, and in addition, 7 leads corresponding to these leads with this affecting mainly to Ciénaga de Oro Formation. In that part, the limestones of the difícil height, and in that part affecting the interporquero levels. In the Brillante area, it has an area of 91,000 hectares located in the departments of the Magdalena and Cesar, and this is the municipalities that corresponds to this area. Brillante is located in that part, and the another wells drilled in the block B41 is Brillante 2, Brillante Southeast, Brillante 1, Brillante Southeast 1X, and Florida West 1 and La Florida 1. In the BIM 41, there are 11 surveys that add up to a length of 455 kilometers in this area. The surveys have been acquired from 1976 to 2017. The BIM 40 area is the volume Brillante 3D 2011 with 164 square kilometers. Measures into the block. Had been in 41 drilled 4 wells, where the Brillante 1 well had strong gas, shows some Brillante. Southeast 1X had gas production with oil associated. The fields near to Brillante are El Difícil and Arjona, located in the Chimichagua. And El Difícil had reported a production of 11.5 million barrels of oil and 345 BCF. And for Arjona, it's discovered in 1991 and is corresponding the production from Ciénaga de Oro. In this block were drilled the Brillante wells in order to test the Ciénaga de Oro reservoir in the Brillante structure that consists in a 3-way deep closure against abnormal faults. It's located in the footwall of a north-northwest normal fault with east dipping associated with the transcurrent Santa Marta fault system, just west of the Aripuani graben. The first well was Brillante 1, drilled by Shell in 1944, reached a total depth of 10,259 feet. The well has strong gas shows and oil in different intervals. After 3.5 months of tests, the well was abandoned. In 2010, Petrolífera drilled the Brillante Southeast 1X well in a deep direction to Brillante 1. This well reached a depth of 9,500 feet. It found a thick sands from upper Ciénaga de Oro with a net pay of 105 feet, with a porosity of 15 feet and water saturation of 58%. The cumulative production was of 578 million cubic feet of gas, 2,600 barrels of oil, and 44 barrels of water. The low capacity on the transportation caused that the well and the field finally closed on June 2014. Okay, this is the well corresponding to the place to the west, okay, the tests. And there were 10 intervals in the Ciénaga de Oro formation that were tested with DST. The range of the intervals tested were from 3,158 feet to 3,350 feet. During the initial testing, the well naturally flowed gas at rates ranging from 2.6 to 84 billion cubic feet per day, with oil flow of 14 barrels of oil per day. Petrolibera report to the Ministry of Mines and Energy in June 2014, the last accumulated production. And their results were 2,687 of oil, 44 barrels of water, and 578 million of cubic feet of gas. And this estimated the gas originally in place between 86 to 163 BCF. And this table corresponds to the calculation of the remaining reserves from proven reserves. The remaining reserves area defined by the economic limit given by Petrolibera. And this is the gas produced that was 5.7 billion cubic feet, and the remaining reserves was in 1P, 9.8 million cubic of feet. But the seismic interpretation, the brillante corresponds to a structural closure. It's a three-weighted closure against normal faults associated to the transcurrent Santa Marta fault system. This structure is in the upstrong block of a north-northwest is dipping normal fault, just west of the Ariquani Graben, corresponding to that part. Another structure corresponds to a four-weighted closure that is affecting the lower Miocene deposits related to the Santa Marta fault system. Another type of plays are associated to possible stratigraphic plays associated to unlapping patterns of Miocene sand, Antomiral Eocene and conformity. The volumetric calculation for the area of the brillante is for the highest estimated, the area is 1,170, 127 acres, and the best estimated 625 acres. The remaining resources for the best estimated is 9.44 BCFs, and high estimated 22.96 BCFs. And the contingent and prospective resources, there are one discovered reservoir that is Brillante Southeast 1X with this value, the remaining resources of near to 23 BCF. In addition, one lead that is located here is that is corresponding to the anticline, that the prospective resources is 50.56 BCF. In San Angel area, it corresponds to an available area where the San Angel 1 well had production in the forest. This area includes the Algarrobo and savannas de San Angel in the department of Magdalena. It is located to the north part of the El Difícil block. The database corresponds to seismic programs where there are some lines of the Arjona 2D 2019 acquired by B&H. That this is the surveys. In the area are 8 wells, where most of the wells were drilled in the forest. 3 of them had shows or tested gas by short time, such as the San Angel 1 well. San Angel 1 was drilled in 1944 and the status was that was gas producer and tested 0.56 million cubic feet per day for 2 months. In San Angel, the San Angel wells was drilled by Shell in the 40s. And the last well drilled in that block was San Angel 2001X, that was drilled by Petrolifera, but in the results, the well did not find the reservoir. The STs found formation water in natural flow, and the maximum pressure was 4,906 psi. And in other San Angel wells, showing in some cases strong shows of gas at the level of intra-porquero formation. The San Angel 1 well was drilled in 1944, and it reached the basement and in a depth of 9,152 feet. It presented gas shows initiating at this depth, with the most significant show on 6,900 feet. Gas accumulation are preserved in sand lenses with thicknesses that vary from 10 to 50 feet in the interval, 5,400 to 5,700 feet, stratigraphically located at the Middle Porquero Formation. The initial production was 60,000 cubic feet per day, and water was 560 barrels of water per day during 2 months. The well was evaluated for 4.5 months, and it was declared as non-commercial gas producer. Not hydrocarbon production were reported from the Sinagagaro Formation drilled by the San Angel 1-3 and Algarrobo 1. And San Angel was tested with 3 DST tests in 1944 in the Intraporquero Formation, where the interval that showed more production was from 5,200 to 7,200 feet, reaching a production of 2,800 cubic feet of gas. This is the results of these different intervals for some days. For example, in 7 days, in this interval, it produced 675,000 cubic feet of gas. And this is the another results. And the more results of the test was in this interval. In San Angel, this is a deep line that corresponding to the part that crosses the San Angel 1, that is located in that part. And it is the strike line north-south. It corresponds to an elongated anticline with a three-way closure and closure against Algarrobo fault to the east. This is the fault, the Algarrobo fault. In the strike direction, the Porquero Formation is being controlled by west-east normal faults. The maximum area of the closure is this. 11,000 acres, and the top of upper Ciénaga de Oro formation is 4,955 feet. It's a structural trap, and the lateral seal is against the fault. And the sources are Oligocene Miocene formations as source and rock and reservoir. And the main risk is associated with the lateral facies change in the reservoir for the intraporchero unit. And this is the calculation for the beam for the San Angel in the intraporchero unit, and this is the different areas, and the maximum area corresponds to 11,500 acres, and this gas original in place calculated. And the last part is the area incorporated by the industry that corresponds to beam 46. The block is located between the blocks Huepajayombe and beam 3 and near to Sicucoboquete. The area of this block is 30,000 hectares, and the departments located. The block is located between the departments of Sucre and Bolivar with these municipalities. There are 10 seismic surveys that add up to a length of 300 kilometers within the area. These surveys have been acquired from 1969 to 2017. These are the different programs acquired in the block, and these corresponded to the available seismic in the ANH with a segue. And another slide corresponds to the wells. The wells, only one well was drilled in the beam 46 block, that is Magangue 1. But near to this block is Magangue 4 and Magangue 3, that the wells are plugged and abandoned. Magangue 1 was drilled in 1951, and it reached a depth of 7,021 feet. The beam 46 is near to the Sicucoboquete and Xenon fields that produces light oil and gas condensate from limestones of Ciénaga de Oro formation. The west is near to Huepajayombe, La Creciente, and Apamate. Magangue 1 drilled 74 feet of limestones, and it was drilled in 1951, and it wasn't tested, but it found a limestone over the basement. It corresponds to the limestone, and in 6,900 feet. And this is the map of the top of the Ciénaga de Oro formation that corresponds to limestones. There are some lines, seismic lines, that I show you as some types of plays that we visualize in the block. For example, this is a deep line corresponding the direction, the northwest to the southeast, that crosses by the Huepaje field located in that part. And there are different types of plays, stratigraphic and structural plays, such as an on-lap of Ciénaga de Oro against the basement, here, or on-laps and paleo heights controlled by the basement. In that part, in this line, is deep straight line that it corresponds to an on-laps of this limestone of the Ciénaga de Oro against the basement. And this is the small line that the direction is southwest, northeast, that corresponds to a paleo height controlled by normal faults. The Huepaje field, located here, it produces gas in Ciénaga de Oro formation. Another types of plays visualized in the block are heights, structural heights controlled by the basement configuration. For example, in Popalio heights of the limestone de Ciénaga de Oro, and structural heights controlled by normal faults with northwest to southeast preferential direction. And Magange 1 was drilled in that part, in the higher part of the basement, but the limestones don't show any production. As a conclusion, the ANH is suffering 6 areas where there was some discovery or production in the lower Magdalena Valley, and they were returned to the ANH. Some of them are located within areas of the Columbia Round 2021, and others are in available areas by the ANH. On the other hand, the section included an incorporated area nominated by the industry. Coral 3 corresponds to a faulted anticline tested at the top of the Ciénaga de Oro formation. Had an initial production of 6.5 million cubic feet per day in the southwest flank of the structure, and the recoverable reserves were estimated to be of the order of 16.2 BCF. The ANH calculated that the structure still has 14 BCFs of gas, high estimated to be recovered with a well to be drilled at the top of the structure. Momposina is a structural height that produced from the Ciénaga de Oro formation in limestones with original gas in place on 70 BCFs. The accumulated volumes were of 93,000 barrels of crude, 2.9 BCF of gas, and 80,800 barrels of water, leaving 11 BCF reserves still to be recovered at the Ciénaga de Oro formation. This well was closed by low volume gas production, presence of H2S, and high water production. The Mocha structure corresponds to a faulted anticline that had 2 discoveries in the Tuara formation in the 60s. And La Mocha 1 and 2 were considered 2 independent gas reservoirs, where the cumulative production was of 652 million cubic feet of gas from May 1979 to December 1971. La Mocha 2 block seems to be the best producer with still additional reserves. The Consuelo anticline was drilled by Consuelo 1, 2, and 3 shallow wells that produced gas from Tubala Formation. They had a cumulative production of 4 BCF from 1966 to 1971. These wells were near to gas water contact, and in that date, they were completely invaded by water. The Guamito 1 well presented several hydrocarbon shows during drilling. The test results indicate presence of liquid and gaseous hydrocarbons and the intraporquero level with these results. And at the top of Ciénaga de Oro Formation, 400 barrels of oil per day with this API gravity, and La Pinta 1 tested oil at Porquero 10,200 feet with 80 barrels of oil per day with 44 degrees API. And at the Ciénaga de Oro, 152 barrels of oil per day of 41 degrees API. The well produced in upper Porquero unit with this total production. And the last accumulated production reported the total production was this 3.7 million cubic feet. The hydrocarbon producer well in the Brillante area. The Brillante Southeast 1X is located in Trent, southeast northwest, 15 kilometers apart from the Arjona field. The Brillante area is estimated to hold 9.4 BCFs to have remnant resources in the best estimate. The main reservoir is the Ciénaga de Oro Formation in a sandstone package with 100 feet net pay. From this range of date, Brillante Southeast 1X produced 578 million cubic feet of gas and 2,600 barrels of oil with 44 barrels of water. San Angel 1 found gas accumulation in sand lenses with thicknesses that vary from 10 to 50 feet in the middle Porquero. The well tested 658,000 cubic feet of gas per day in the interval. The well also tested 1.2 million cubic feet of gas per day in this interval near to the interporquero top. The well had an initial production of 50,600 million cubic 50,600 and water of 560 barrels of water per day during 2 months. This well was evaluated for 4.5 months and it was declared a non-commercial gas producer. The evaluation of the incorporated area in the lower Magdalena Valley, being 46, shows stratigraphic and structural traps related to the basement configuration with the deposit of the Ciénaga de Oro Formation. That is all. Thank you very much.
Okay, Lina, thank you so much for your presentation. So now we got a question in Spanish, but I think because of time, we will be answering the questions via email to the person that have asked. I don't know, Lina, if you want to ask maybe one of the questions in Spanish. That is to Jorge Bernal. Maybe we could ask that, answer that, and the rest of the questions, we will see if we have time for those. Maybe if we haven't, we will look through them via email. So, Lina, the first question in Spanish, la pregunta Jorge Bernal. Él dice, Lina, felicitaciones, buena presentación del BIM. Los prospectos Jere 1 y Gaviota 1 que están asociados al Pozo La Pinta 1 fueron perforados.
No, esos no fueron perforados, es que están en el shape de pozos, pero realmente lo único que están son las formas 4CR, entonces no fueron perforados.
Perfecto, Lina, muchas gracias.
Sí, eran como unas propuestas que tenían para un prospecto, pero no fueron perforados.
Ok, muchas gracias. Gloria Obando pregunta, bueno, primero felicita a Daniel y a Lina, un trabajo en NH, y desea saber si primero la presentación estará disponible para volver a verla. Sí, las presentaciones están disponibles en la página de la ANH. Nosotros hemos ido compartiendo los links en algunas presentaciones, sin embargo, ustedes pueden acceder a través de Google a las presentaciones sin ningún tipo de problema. Ustedes simplemente ponen en ANH y eso está en la parte del PPA. También creo que están algunas vinculadas en el canal de la ANH de YouTube y ella desea saber si hay recientemente adquisición geofísica en el área del BIM. Por parte de la ANH de adquisición de aerogeofísica, lo que sea aeromagnetometría o aerogravimetría en el BIM no se ha vuelto a adquirir más allá de los trabajos hechos por Graterol en el 2006. Pregunta Ryan Aquilini, are the data packs for each block available? If not, when will be able to receive them? The data packs for each block, if you are one of the companies that are allowed by the ENH to get the data packs, or you can buy them directly to the SGC, to the Colombian Geological Service, because they are the ones that are selling the data packs of each of the areas if you want to take a look by yourself or by the company you're working with. Pregunta Rafael Antonio López Guzmán. La ANH prevé realizar en un futuro inmediato programas de adquisición sísmica 3D regionales en las cuencas sedimentarias onshore del Caribe colombiano. No, señor. Por el momento no. El programa de 3D que la agencia está pensando realizar, como lo presentamos en la APG a principios de año, están enfocados más en el offshore colombiano. De hecho, sería el primer programa formalmente que estaría dentro de Cuenca, Colombia. No hay más preguntas. Yo creo que así damos por terminada. There are no more questions. So we will finish for today. Thank you to all the attendees. We will see you next week at the Mira Magdalena and Llanos presentation. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to Lina for that amazing presentation, and see you later. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.